Hi, hello. Editing Rob popping in real quick because I didn't want to bury the lead. Also, I completely forgot to mention in the video, but no, New War is not going to be dropping in 2019. D tried to play it off and was like, well, you know, when exactly does a war start anyway? Is it when the first mission is fired? Or is it when you're constructing your weapons of war in the dojo, you know, a la Rising Tide? Yo, it's not here. Don't make excuses, okay? Regardless, let's just go ahead and jump into the rest of the video. You conned us all. Hey, what's up, my brilliant little banana nut muffins? This is Rob from The Gay Guy Plays, and today on #confirmed, we're going to be digging into Devstream 134 to take a closer look at Empyrean's core mechanics. Now, I do have a little bit of a disclaimer for you guys. Honestly, I still don't quite know how I feel about everything that we saw. I want to go ahead and kind of like rewatch and reassess everything there, mainly because of the fact that the demo was a little bit rough, and I'm trying to figure out whether it was that way because of the mechanics or whether it was that way because, you know, the gameplay itself was just a little bit rough. Let me know how you guys feel about all of that down in the comments below, but leave a further discussion for the video I'm gonna go ahead and release sometime tomorrow. Regardless, today I've got a whole slew of notes on the core mechanics, the most updated version that they have for us right now, and there are some very interesting things here, so let's just go ahead and jump on in. First and foremost, for everybody who has actually gone and researched their Railjack and finished up with that quest, we are going to be receiving another Find Your Keys quest, which is the Reliquary Drive one, as soon as it goes live. So that way, we'll be able to complete that quest and then launch ourselves out into the universe with our Railjack. Now, another thing that I did want to go ahead and put out there for you guys is DE really had to decide which end of the spectrum they were going to lean when it came to Railjack, whether it was going to be a co-op focus or a single player experience. Right now what they're saying is that they leaned into the co-op version of this for Railjack 1.0. They are planning on releasing more features that are going to make this a little bit easier for solo players later down the line, but at launch it will be co-op focused. Now, when they say specifically co-op focused, they're not saying you're going to be locked out of anything because of the fact that you're going to need a team, but really what they said is the lockout is just going to be difficulty based. It's going to be more difficult to take on certain tasks as you progress deeper into Empyrean, which, to be honest with you, kind of looked like it may be the case with the gameplay. Again, like I was saying, I'm trying to sort through all of that myself, but they're saying it's not like a hard lockout, it's more like a there's only so much one person can do kind of lockout. So keep that in mind when you're taking a look at the footage in the background or you're hearing any of the information that I present today. Now, when it comes to learning all of these new systems, they're actually going to be introducing something called the free flight mode, where you can learn without the pressure of having a mission objective. So you can just set out with a couple of your friends, just fly around, maybe take on some enemies, to just grab a feel. That sounds terrible. Only with their consent, of how the gameplay works, how it feels, how it like handles itself. So that is definitely going to be in the free flight mode. Another thing that they went ahead and mentioned is that there are going to be some mission types that involve points of interest. So when you hit certain maps, there will be a base objective, which is going to be the mission type, but because of the fact that you spawned in on that specific point of interest, there will also be other objectives that kind of relate to that point of interest. So definitely keep that in mind when you are jumping in a mission. Now, because of the fact that this is going to be a co-op system, they are going to make two different options for players. You're either going to be able to join an existing crew, or you're going to be able to form a crew. So forming a crew basically just entails you going down to your Railjack and setting off on a mission. People will be able to join you from there, or you'll be able to invite people into the group. Next, you can actually join a crew. Now, what's going to happen is kind of like where the main map of the star chart is, where you kind of like have your Nightwave stuff and all of your Syndicate and Quest stuff. That area is going to contain a new tab that says Join a Crew, and basically it's going to kind of take take you into the system where all of the Railjack stuff is, and you're going to be able to select a node and you'll just kind of join a mission that's there. The only thing that you will need is access to an Arcwing, so you don't even need to have completed your Railjack yourself, but you'll be able to jump into an Arcwing. As long as you've got that done, you will be ready to go. Now, let's go ahead and start off with the Railjack itself. Now, a lot of the things that you're going to run into is things that your clan will need to research. So this is definitely something that you guys need to be aware of moving into Railjack. Whether that means downsizing your clan, maybe leaving your clan for a more active clan, starting your own clan, whatever it is that you need to do, keep in mind you will need to research a bunch of things. And when I say a bunch of things, I mean things like your weapons. So we're talking about auto cannons, we're talking about the little side cannons, we're going to be talking about engines, shield reactors, shield array. They're also going to have something called ordinances, which are like your missiles, and all of those are going to be tiered. So basically what's going to happen is everybody is going to need to chip in to each of those different tiers of weapons in order to improve the ship themselves. What is this called? Okay, so this is something that I want to say. It's not when you're researching, but it's the other thing, like you're done researching and you're fabricating or crafting. You know, you have to craft your own shit. Basically, those are going to use some new resources that you're going to be able to gain as you're out in Arcwing missions. So basically, you kind of are going to have to go out there with some bare bones stuff, like some low level kind of stuff, in order just to get started and to start accumulating some of the resources that you're actually going to need to fabricate, if that's the word, or craft is basically the right word, the blueprints from the things that your clan has researched for your Railjack. Now, what I found really, really interesting about this is that all of the different things you're going to be researching are going to tie into what you've got. So, of course, you have the different types of weapons that you'll be able to slot into the main guns of your ship, the side guns, of course, the ordnance and all of that kind of stuff. You also have engines, which I did not quite see what the exact stats it would be tied to are. Of course, there is the engine stat. There are things like the hull and all of that, which I think it might be tied to. They said the shield reactor would, of course, be the shield, so I'm assuming it's going to be shield recharge. And then we have something called the shield array for energy for mods and tactical powers. So the way that I kind of want to put this out there is it's very similar to like building your own MOA, you know, or your kit gun. It's going to have like 3 different parts that are the base stats of the actual Railjack itself, or big flying MOA, whatever you want to call it. And then of course you're going to be able to add in weapons to that too. Now the stats that I was able to take a look at is of course armor, avionics capacity, engines, flux capacity, forge capacity, hull, which I'm assuming is your health, shields, shield recharge, and then incendiary resistance. Now when it comes to the weapons, I also saw 2 damage types there, which is plasma and ballistic. So basically, you're going to be able to use these things like your engines, your shields, and your shield array to kind of have the base stats there. And then, of course, your weapons are going to form the rest. Now, when it comes to avionics, this is going to be like you're modding your big flying MOA, right? So it's 3 different types of mods. Also note that one of the things that we had talked about was the avionics capacity. This is basically like your mod capacity on your weapons, warframes, or, you know, big flying MOAs. And interesting fact, the mods have different manufacturers. So it's kind of like, you know, you have one manufacturer that is based off of offense, one manufacturer that is really good at defense, yada, 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 so on and so forth. Kind of like Nerimon, Zeneric, you know, all of the other ones that I just conveniently forgot the names of. Unairu, there's another one. So I feel like there's definitely a mirroring that is going on. They've just kind of dressed it up in a different way. So let's go ahead and take a look at the different types of avionics. The first one is battle. So this one is going to be Warframe-like abilities. We had 3 that they showed off. One was called Shatter Burst, which creates a barrage of 1.5 explosions per second over 30 seconds, dealing 200 damage in 8 meters. Now, I do want to kind of put this out. These are probably all working numbers. They'll probably fine-tune it further later on, but these are just for examples. So basically, little explosion zone. Then we have Fiery Phoenix. Leave a trail of fire dealing 10 or 100 damage per second to enemies. Gain 10% speed buff and 10% damage reduction while active. Accumulates 10 damage per second that unleashes upon deactivation over 75 meters. So it sounds like, it almost kind of sounds like Nirjahaz, with Pyroclastic Flow, where you can like explode it. I'm just saying. Next up, we have Void Hole, and it creates a 75-meter black hole that sucks in enemies, dealing 100 damage per second over 10 seconds. So these are all very Warframey like abilities. Almost kind of like precepts in a big flying MOA. I'm just putting it out there. Then we also have things that are stat boosting mods, which is Last Stand, increase all turret weapon damage by 19% when hull is below 20%. Auxiliary hull, wow, I can't talk, restore 11% of hull before death on a 900-second cooldown, and then heatsink, reduce incendiary damage. So these integrated avionics, so we had battle, this is now integrated. These are basically the stat boosts. These are basically going to be kind of like your core, kind of like think of your base mods that you would use on your Warframe. And then the last avionic category we have is tactical. Now, battle is all of your offensive stuff, right? Tactical seems to be ship affecting things, aka things like buffs. One of which, of course, is Void Cloak. We've seen it before, and it's basically just a ship stealth. So I'm assuming there are going to be other things like maybe like an Iron Skin version in this tactical avionics area. But the interesting thing about all of these avionics is all of them have a cost, very similar to a mod. So basically, the avionics capacity is like your mod capacity. Each of these different avionics are like mods that you slot in to your flying MOA's like basically grid. Now let's go ahead and talk about upgrading. So there are 2 ways to upgrade, and it's all via the use of Avionics Endo. Y'all might have just called it Endo because it's basically the same thing. So all of these things like, you know, the battle avionics like Shatterburst, Fiery Phoenix, and Void Hole, or the integrated avionics, Last Stand, Auxiliary Hull, Heatsink, all of these have an avionics cost, just like the mod cost on a mod. But what you can do is you can level up all of your avionics with this Avionics Endo, aka it's basically like a mod, right? It's like you're leveling up each of your mods. And then, much like you would do to any of your Warframes, any of your weapons, or any of your flying MOAs, you can actually upgrade the grid, which would be, you know, the mod area. So instead of polarizing, we're upgrading the grid. So you select a little grid area and you can actually strengthen that part of the grid, which gives you a strengthened version of your, what do you call this, of your avionics. So let's say you have like a 10% mod to your ship's hull. If you put it in a strengthened grid, then it might give you a 15%. Of course, that's just all what I'm assuming in my head when they talk about upgrading grid. Now, those are going to be kind of like the modding parts of your ship. There are also resources that you're going to be using, and that's going to be in your payload. The payload uses the 4 new resources that we actually encountered very, very recently. It was on the most recent release. There were some on the Grenier ship tile set. There was ones on the Ice Planet. They were found on Eximus, and I can't remember where the rest of them are. I will have them listed down in the comments below, or I will actually just go ahead and leave a link up to that video so that you guys can go ahead and take a look where to find all of these things. Basically, they're the carbides, coppernicks, cubic diodes, and pustrals. So if those sound familiar to you, go where you found those. Now, basically what's going to happen is in the payload area, you're going to be able to craft 4 new items with a combination of those resources, and you're going to be using them during your mission time. So Revelite uses cubic diodes and pustules to carry out repairs. So when you're getting attacked, your ship will actually start combusting. There will be fires that happen. So in order to put out those fires, you're going to need to use Revelite in order to basically put out any fires and patch up any tears. So you're going to need to craft that if you need to, take care of your ship. Flux energy is necessary for battle and tactical avionic usage and uses Copernicus and cubic diodes. So basically, flux energy, think of that as like an energy pad for your Warframe, but instead it's for your big flying MOA. Dome charge uses carbides and pustules to power forward artillery, aka that big fucking cannon up at the front. You know how there's like the little steering area, then you go down the back and then you can shoot that big cannon. You're gonna need dome charges in order to, shoot them in the dome. Next up, we have munitions, and these will require carbides and Copernicus to launch ordinances, aka missiles. So like we were talking about earlier, when you are researching things in the clan, you have your standard cannons and like plasma blasters, but you also have ordinances, which are going to be your missiles. Now, all of these items that you're going to be able to find, you're also going to run into them as you are flying throughout space. So let's pretend maybe you were low, you didn't come prepared. You can craft them ahead of time, but you can also craft them while you are on your ship. Your Railjack actually comes equipped with 4 stations that you can craft these items on, and then they go on a quick cooldown while they're crafting. So you need to go to one crafting station, craft something, go to another station, craft a different thing. They'll all go cooldown, and it looked like a pretty quick cooldown on the screen. So if you didn't come prepared, you'll always be able to craft them on the fly. Next up, this is where things get really, really interesting, because now we're taking a step back from your ship and we're going to be focusing on you as a pilot. And this I'm kind of excited about because this is a progression system. And I've been bitching and moaning about a progression system in Warframe. However, this one is going to be tied specifically to Railjacks. So intrinsics are passive skills intrinsic to you no matter what ship you operate. So let's say, and we'll get into all of the different names, you are a pilot, right? And you've ranked your pilot up to level 9. It doesn't matter whether you're piloting your ship. It doesn't matter whether you're piloting somebody else's ship. All of the benefits that come from your intrinsic skills are going to be attributed to whatever ship you're on. So if you're like, let's say, a level 9 gunner, doesn't matter what ship you get on, those guns are going to do extra damage. So it's going to be things like that. Now, they did want to make note that this will actually gate certain things a ship can do and gives you boost to fundamentals. So the things that we saw are things like pilots will get engine boost, so you'll be able to boost your ship. You'll have the juke maneuver, so you'll be able to like maybe sway left, right, and center. I don't know how juking really works. And then we have the drift maneuver. So all of these things are intrinsic to people who have piloting skills, right? Your ship can't do this unless you have the piloting skill to do it. Now, your ship can do it if a different pilot takes over and they have a higher intrinsic. But basically what's happening is your ship in and of itself is kind of like the core. The pilot is going to be the one that's going to have the skills to make it do all the crazy moves. Now, there are currently, or at least at launch, going to be 4 different intrinsics with 9 levels in each separate intrinsic. So you're going to have tactical, which I'm assuming is going to have to do with some of like the self-buff and self-sustain of the actual ship itself, because we saw that there were tactical avionics. So I'm sure there are going to be some ties into that. We have piloting, which like I was saying earlier, has things like the different maneuverabilities of the ship, but also has things like negative 50% collision damage, which will potentially help the ship not get itself wrecked when it lands into rocks. Yo, I wonder if piloting will allow me to ram my ship into things. Could I have like 99% collision damage and also deal damage? I was not really interested in piloting until I thought about that at this very moment. Anyway, they also have gunnery, they have engineering. So those are going to be the 4 at launch: tactical, piloting, gunnery, and engineering. The last one is actually going to be released after all of the launch comes, and basically it's going to be command. Now this one is going to be specified towards solo players, where you'll actually be able to command your crew. So as we were seeing in the gameplay demo, you know, there were fires all over the ship, so you'll be able to kind of like command NPCs to go around and kind of like put out fires, maybe combat other enemies that board your ship, so on and so forth. So keep that in mind. You'll be able to do that, not at launch, but eventually. They also stated that with that being available, you'll actually gain an item that will allow you to respec completely. So be willing to play with things and be willing to check things out, because legitimately you're going to be able to do any of that kind of stuff. Now, there are a couple other things that I did want to go ahead and make mention of when it comes to the way that I guess you would say Railjack is going to be structured now. Number one of the cool things that we noticed is that on the ship, you're actually going to be able to kind of like jump from the viewpoint of yourself to other people on the team, and you'll have like a little communications panel. I can see this going one of two ways, absolutely fantastically, or being extremely annoying, where people will spam you and try to boss you around telling you what you need to do. Of course, hopefully you're on a crew that all works together and you don't really need to deal with that. But that is something that we saw within the gameplay. In addition to that, you'll actually have little, markers next to each person's name, which correspond to the Warframe they have equipped. And that Warframe will actually be able to have their ability kind of harnessed and used in a mission. So what they showed was Rebecca was able to be down in the engineering room, and then all of a sudden she needed to use Vauban's, what is it called? The photon beam, where she was able to actually call that down in a specific area. Same thing goes for Avara. She was saying that, oh, you can use Avara's quiver, and whatever arrow she currently has equipped is going to be used. She was like, if I believe I have stealth on now, so I can go ahead and drop this down and make someone invisible. So you're going to be able to kind of like aid each other on missions just being in the team. So like you don't necessarily need to have someone there, but it is going to make up for interesting compositions because of the fact that you'll be able to use any of these abilities across the map. You will need energy to do that, and I'm not sure if it's going to be Warframe energy or if it's going to come from your the avionic flux energy thing that they've got going on. So thought that was really, really interesting. While we're talking about kind of being mobile, you'll actually be able to activate the Railjack abilities from any battle turret. So if you're a gunner and you want to use one of the ship's abilities, you'll actually be able to use it from that. However, I do believe that the tactical menu is going to be in a separate place. I think that you're going to be able to kind of like, it's like the ship menu, something along those lines. So those are going to be the big things that I actually wanted to go ahead and make mention of. There are so many things to talk about right now. Again, I'm still processing everything that I've seen. And I hope that you guys were able to get a clearer picture of exactly what is going on with Railjack. From what you've heard about, the mechanics so far, let me know what you feel down in the comments below. Is there anything that you think is going to be negative? Anything that you think is going to be positive? Also, like I said, I'm going to be doing a separate video for my opinions on everything. Probably tomorrow. I just need some time to process and figure out all of my feels, kind of like figure out the finer points of maybe this just looked bad on camera but will actually play well in real life, all of that kind of stuff. So I gotta go rewatch the dev stream for like a 4th time, so that about does it for me for now, and as always, love somebody, hurt nobody, and touch your body. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye!